Hello, my name is Matt Johnson. I'm here to share a little bit about the ministry call that God has placed on my heart. So thank you for joining on, and hope you're encouraged by what you see here. So I like to always start with the why, the issue. The enemy doesn't need to take out the entire family, church, organization, or community. He just needs to take out the man that has been called to steward them. And men are failing. When godly men don't show up for their community, you're left with an authority breach, a validation crisis, and virtue dormancy is what I call it. And you can see this in our culture today, really, from an authority breach standpoint. Look at the corruption in our leaders, governments, organizations, companies, embezzlement, I mean, you name it. Contempt for authority, from defund the police to how people talk about our leaders, even how leaders talk about each other. And then things like destructive riots. There really is a lack of moral compass when it comes to the guidance of authority figures. You see it in the validation crisis, is again what I call it. I'm convinced that the majority of what we see not working in our community these days is just a cry for validation. Everyone's out there screaming, validate me, validate me, validate me, whether it's the allure of social media and likes and followers, to just the entitlement generation coming up behind us, to just that need for and expectation of handouts, government handouts, company handouts, boss handouts, title, roles, jobs, pay handouts. It's just a scream for validation. And then, like I said, what I call virtue dormancy, extended adolescence in and of itself. The life stage that is defined by adolescence has gone from a 5-year life stage to a 14-year life stage in the last 14 years. Because again, there's really no reason or nothing to grow up for, as being desirable as it really was before the culture that we're currently in. Look at the departure from church. People are leaving in droves, and not just these upcoming generations. They're leaving really any organized religion in droves, but also church leaders, ministry leaders, really high profile ones are continuing to leave the church as we move away from virtue and moral. And that's just, again, driven a lot by what is called woke culture, where everything revolves around the person, not necessarily a code of ethics or conduct or morality that is agreed upon by an entire community. And this, to me, this slide is like, this is what we're experiencing as a culture and a country right now. And this is what happens when true, noble, integrated, godly men are not showing up. So what happened? Great question. It's what I call the fatherless epidemic. Practically, fathers just not being there. 25% of kids grow up without their own dad in the house. But think about how many more also don't have their dads showing up mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So why did this happen? Where did this even come from? There's 3 really big key things that I'm going to call out that are unique to our country over these last 100 years. And it really is just an absolute attack. It's an attack on not just masculinity, but specifically the father role within the home, the father role within our organizations. So from a war standpoint, starting 100 years ago, 2 world wars brought fathers to the other side of the world. While many didn't physically come home, most fathers never emotionally came home. Busyness. Oh my goodness, when you talk about the enemy doesn't need to necessarily directly take on us or our Father God. He just needs to do enough to keep us busy, enough to keep us distracted. The Industrial Revolution brought fathers out of the home for the first time really in the history of our planet. We have constant connectivity right now. We're always tied to our phone, to business, to demands, and then the proliferation of other cultural expectations. Youth sports is one I had to throw up here. It's just absolutely crazy how much time investment goes into things outside of taking on the father role. That top level ministry and just demands have separated fathers from their kids. That you see it everywhere. And then culture, wokeness, gender confusion, not all feminism, but certainly new wave feminism had declared war on masculinity. And fortunately now men have become either one of 2 things, either ignorant or apathetic to their role as a father. It's either about absolutely abdicating or being uncertain, and then also just continuing to scream for validation themselves. And that leaves us with a country that has families, organizations, governments effectively being run by 12-year-old boys. And when I say that, that couldn't sound any more true than it is. When you look at the leaders of countries, when you look at the leaders of governments and of businesses and of even our own families. That's about as true as it gets. So what do we do about it? As the old saying goes, it's a lot easier to raise up healthy kids than it is to fix broken adults. So that's to me where the starting point is. Until a boy knows he is a man, he will spend his entire life trying to prove that he is one. And you see that in the chase again for validation, whether it's through cars or experiences or sex or drugs or title or possession. It's boys are just trying to build their own kingdom instead of from a place of validation, building God's kingdom. Problem is, number one, validation was never something meant to be earned. It's something that has to be imparted. Number two, God designed true masculinity to be bestowed specifically from a father or father figure to a son. And he exemplified it himself. So the only story in the entire Bible where God speaks from the clouds, they open up in a big booming voice, right? Speaks to a mass of people is when Jesus is baptized. And he's baptized, the heavens open up, and God says, "This is Jesus, my son." He gives him identity, one. This is my son. In him I am well pleased. He validates him as the man that he is and as his son. In the narrative of the Bible, the very next thing that happens, he goes into the desert to be tested. And the very first thing the enemy says is, "If you are the son of God, ... So it's an immediate attack on his identity, of which he's already been affirmed in by his father. And if it was important enough for that to happen to Jesus, who was also 100% God in and of himself from his father, how important must it be for us that was modeled for all of us to follow? We are the first society in the history of our planet that has relinquished this duty of bestowing masculinity from a tribe of men or a father onto their sons. So welcome to the Axis Project. We are a ministry dedicated to reclaiming our land through integrated communities of men that are awakening or reawakening destiny by empowering fathers and initiating sons. What does that look like? The Axis Project exists to support, connect, and partner with fathers to initiate their sons into the community of men by rekindling the sacred act of coming of age ceremonies. That is our place in the world. That is what I am on this planet to do. What does that look like? We start with preparation. So there's a 6-week preparation. Think of it like a small group, and it's just for the dads. And they work through different sessions, and those sessions will have a one-to-one relationship to a session that will happen on a weekend that they will get to experience with their son. And those sessions can be anything from defining godly masculinity, right? We can't call you into something until we've defined it for you. Your relationship with God, your wounds and the father's wounds, and what the father maybe has started to already put onto his own son, and finding healing for that, and then preparing for the ceremony itself, where they will invite them in and bless them as a member of the community of men. That leads then specifically into an initiation weekend, a Thursday night through Sunday morning, filled with fun, adventure, gifts, surprises, tenderness, and then the coming of age ceremony, sitting around a bonfire, blessing your son, inviting him into this community. And really the purpose of all of this is that the initiation isn't the end of something, it's really just the beginning. And it's an invitation, if you will, for the father to play that role for his son, that now we've spoken truths that may be yet to be realized, that the father now becomes that chief figure, just like it was for the thousands of years before the Industrial Revolution, to be that person that is going to raise up their son into true godly masculinity and manlyhood. And that's really the output of it, is to kick off that journey from that 12-year-old that's hearing these words to the 18-year-old that then will leave the nest knowing exactly who he is, where he comes from, and where he's going. This isn't for all fathers. It's for intentional fathers. It needs to be for all sons. We are calling fathers to bring something to the table, to be expected of, to be demanded of. Sons will only get out of this what their fathers are willing to put into it. A quick review. 2022 was a super exciting year for us. Here's why. We onboarded a complete board of directors. We finalized our branding and have secured our social media handles. We've identified and working to identify initiates for our 2023 pilot phase, of which I'll get to in the next slide. We developed content for all those prep sessions I spoke to, and then the weekend itself, paper documented videos that we go with it, so that we could then host our first beta weekend. This was the pinnacle of our year. We had 3 dads and 4 sons that went through our very first weekend of this. They did the prep courses, they had the weekend, they signed a covenant, and the feedback that we got from the dads and the sons was just unbelievable. Talking about, hear the sons say this was their best weekend ever, to feel like they're, quote, official, to be welcomed into something. The highlight was the ceremony itself. So that was just, it was, I couldn't tell you how excited and emotional I was for that weekend. But what does that mean from here then? Our strategic vision and plan, 2031, 100,000 initiates. This is a number that I don't know how we're going to get to, but God does. And that's, I guess, the point. This number also shows that we need to prioritize scaling. I can't do all this on my own. We really need to become a technology and a content company. That's, as much as that's not what I'm excited about, that's the way this works. So think of like an alpha ministry where they have created the content. It's easy, it's simple, it's integrated. You have train the trainers, you have the content that the people go through, you have videos that help them walk through it. And that's exactly what we need to create. It needs to be super easy. It needs to be super accessible for fathers to take this on, for a champion of a church to take this on as a ministry and facilitate that within them, because we created something so incredibly easy and accessible. That's how we get to 100,000. To stay on track for that, 2025 goal is 250 initiates, to be partnering with 5 churches and 5 different ministries. So what does that mean we need to do to accomplish this year to get there? 10 initiates over 3 pilot weekends. That's our goal, to take what we learned from our 1 beta test, do any honing, kind of read and react, set up 3 pilot weekends with our 10 initiates, and really make this a real thing. And then what we will learn from that will then be the official go live starting in 2024, where we would see a church take this on as their own, because we put the work in all on the front end. So this is where we're going. 100,000 initiates 2031, 250 by 2025, and then 10 this year. That's where we're going. We're super excited. That is the Axis project. That is my heart in about as fast as I could possibly say it, both the why, the what, and the how. And I'm excited that A, you're even watching this, and B, for what you can bring to the table, whether it's through prayer, through involvement, through if it's a son of your own. And that's what I'm here for. I'm here for you. And just am really excited for where this is going. The heart of our ministry is really summed up by Malachi 4:6 on the bottom there. He will turn the hearts of the fathers to the sons and the sons to their fathers. And that's the reclaiming we're really looking to do. And our country needs it, our fathers need it, and our sons need it. And thank you for watching, and God bless.